Good morning. Can I send a Google Doc instead of a PDF for Chapter 7? Yeah, I think I can. Um, it's kind of the same thing, but yeah, I got you. I'll try it out. How are you, Joanna Marie? It sounds like you're having a hard time with the online school. Is Google Doc the only thing that works for you? Feel free to email me or anything if you have any concerns or if you need any help. I'm gonna give it a couple minutes just so that the other students can get in. See, there's three. Hey, Natalie, how are you? Make sure you guys have your chapter 21 packet. Did you guys all do your practice exercise on page 611 for chapter 21? You guys will eventually need to send that. Once we're through the chapter, you're going to send it all because that's going to be your journal grade, and I'll put that in as one of your grades for the fourth marking period. Just make sure you're always doing your exercises and taking your notes. That's the one thing I ask of you while you're coming to these live stream classes. I made one for the 10th grade for their test. It turned out pretty well. So during your spring break, I'm going to get one set up for all you guys to try to make sure that you have access to all of your assignments for the fourth marking period to make that easy for you guys. We're going to be doing grading right now for the fourth marking period and getting all of that situated. So I'm not going to put you into a Google Classroom for the last week where you don't have anything due till next week. Spring break is April 9th, so it's in 6 days. Oh, wow. Bill Withers just passed away. If you don't know who Bill Withers is, yes, it's 9th to the 15th. Hello, Elise Marie. But Bill Withers is the guy who made the song Lean on Me or Ain't No Sunshine. Two good songs. He just passed away, unfortunately. All right. So with your chapter 8, for your chapter 21 notes that you've been taking, hold on to those until we get to the end of chapter 21, right? When we get to the end of chapter 21, you're going to send me a picture of all of your notes for the whole chapter and all of your exercises, okay? At the beginning or whichever part of the fourth marking period that we get to the end, you're going to send me that so that I can make that your journal grade, and that'll be your journal grade for the fourth marking period in the beginning. All right. So I see 5 people are in. I'm going to give one more minute for any stragglers to come in. You should be open to page 612 in your chapter 21 packet. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is arranging your supporting details. Yeah, my house is pretty quiet. Me and my cats. um, Arranging supporting details. So where we left off at your thesis. Okay. Hey, Samaya. So when you're making your thesis and your thesis statement, to get to that point, you need to really hone in to what you want your two subjects to be, right? Because we're talking about a compare and contrast, right? So we already know that we have to have subject one, right? And a subject two. Okay. You know, in math class where you do the thing where it's like the least common multiple and you draw the lines until you get down to the very last multiple for each one. You can do that for subject one and two, right? So, subject one, you can make lines, right? Subject two, you can make lines. And what these are going to be your talking points. These are going to be how you build your supporting details and you build your organization. So subject one and subject two that we are comparing and contrasting are blank and blank. We will know that when we start building our paper, right? When we start going through that process. Let's say right now, subject one and two are comparing. All right. Gandalf to Dumbledore. All right. So imagine we are comparing Gandalf the Grey from The Lord of the Rings, epic wizard, to Dumbledore, who is the headmaster of Harry Potter, epic wizard, right? The one thing that we know is they both are dealing with magic. They're both extremely strong, powerful, bearded wizards, right? So, our main topic that we are going to talk about, let's say, is who was let's say that's our underlying question. We're going to compare and contrast these guys to figure out who is the better wizard. Okay? So subject 1, Gandalf, subject 2 being Dumbledore. What are the three talking points that we can build for each subject? All right? So, since we're comparing and contrasting, let's say we have two compares, one contrast right now. All right? Comparison to Gandalf and Dumbledore, they are both dealing with powerful magic. Right? So this would be one of our details. Let's say another supporting detail would be since we're going to give them each their own line, I won't write both, but supported a young hero in completing a journey against evil, right? Dumbledore did the same thing, right? So we're building this plot, right? So they both have powerful magic, and I'm going to be in your way a little bit, guys, right now, but they also both supported a young hero in completing a journey against evil. All right. So our two commonalities, right? Powerful magic. They both supported a young hero against evil. So now we can have our contrast, right? What did Dumbledore do different than Gandalf? And what did Gandalf do different in his story than Dumbledore? What separates these two wizards who deal with powerful magic, who have beards, who have almost the same look, right? How do these two guys differ? Well, it would be their situations, right? Their scenario. So you could literally over here, right? Situation slash events, right? Situation events, right? So this is how we get the main talking points that, yes, I will zoom it in. All right, so once we have the main talking points, this is where we will have body paragraph 1, 2, and 3, right? You have your thesis statement. So these should be the different parts of your thesis, okay? So how do we elaborate upon these things to make them more refined, more detailed, and to give us those supporting sentences for each paragraph in our paper? Okay, so I did these in red. I'm going to do the next set of notes in blue so you can see the difference. I'm going to erase this and move this over here so you can still see the question, but it's not in our way. So our question is still, who is the better wizard? Joanna Marie, hopefully that is enough zoom. There you go. All right. You don't have to necessarily use this as the only example, right? So write this example in your notes, but if you want, create an example that you can connect with, maybe with a story that you know or a subject that you can connect with and elaborate upon that maybe for you makes more sense. That way you have a more personal connection to the information that you are taking notes on, right? So Gandalf and Dumbledore, they're both powerful magicians. They both supported a hero against evil, and they each had their own situations and events to go through, so that's where they differ. Okay? So this is where, as we continue, powerful magic. We're going to draw 3 lines on each of these, right? You would have, of course, more space on your paper, or you can design this differently so that you have more space. Okay? So you're going to draw out these 3 lines. You can do more lines if you want, but I find that 3 lines is a great starting point for the level of organization that you would need to meet the minimum requirements to have a full-length paragraph. Meaning, point one, so let's say powerful magic. Point one, we'll do point two, point three, right? So what about powerful magic? Or what about Gandalf's powerful magic specifically would we talk about? Okay. Sentence one or point one could be one aspect of his magic. Next would be another aspect of his magic. Third would be your third aspect of the magic. And from there, what you can do, so I'm going to write here key points about magic. Just so you guys. All right. So key points about their magic. I understand that small. Key points about magic. So when we're talking about their powerful magic, we're going to have point one, point two, point three. We see them right now just as point one, point two, point three, but powerful magic, we're going to lead into our paragraph with something indicating that this paragraph is specifically about Gandalf's powerful magic. Okay? So that's the first part of our organization. Gandalf's powerful magic is body paragraph one. Once we lead into that paragraph with our intro sentence, we then move into the first point. The first point can be sentence one. Our next point can be sentence two, sentence three, or I'm sorry, 2, 3, 4, because we have our intro sentence for powerful magic. So this would be sentence 2, 3, and 4. Minimum length of a paragraph should be at least 5 sentences, right? So intro, sentence 2, 3, and 4, and then you wrap it up and conclude this paragraph. So your points, you want them to all meet up in the middle again. Conclude. So next, you bring these all together and you conclude this information and you allude to your next point. Okay? Your next point is going to be, okay, Gandalf's ability to support a young hero in completing their journey against evil. Okay? So here this would be point one, point two, and point three. Okay? Using this branching out chart, you can really see what you want to speak upon on each subject. Okay? The reason why this is important is because while you're writing, you want your thought process to make sense. You want your reader to be able to understand this topic and what you're specifically talking about per paragraph. You don't want to be talking about Gandalf's powerful magic and then talk about Dumbledore's ability to support a young hero in that same paragraph. It doesn't make sense, right? We're comparing and contrasting. So what would we compare? Gandalf's powerful magic against Dumbledore's powerful magic. So immediately after each other, so this could be our body one, right? body 2. Why? Because if we're talking about the powerful magics, we want to get through that information first before we introduce our reader to another set of information, right? We want them to be on the same page about each topic as we go on. So powerful magics, that'll be body paragraphs 1 and 2. We get into the next section, body paragraph 3, body paragraph 4, right? And then as we get to the end tail of our paper, or the latter half, or latter third in this case, of our paper, our contrast can be our body paragraphs 5 and 6, and then once we have all of this information, right? Once all of our talking points have come together and we have concluded, okay? Once we have concluded for each one, that's when we get to our conclusion and you just wrap up your paper. The reason why you want to use a point-by-point method, in using this method, you have the ability to point out your one specific subject and all of its corresponding information. In having that organization, you're really building a verbal diagram for your reader. Your reader does not have to worry about any other information per paragraph other than what you lead into it. So for body paragraph 1, for this example, you're only speaking about powerful magics. When you talk about Dumbledore in his first paragraph, it is going to be about his powerful magics and his points. I'll do blue, red. Do you guys understand why it's important to organize your thoughts? This is just one method. I will show you another method for those who might think this is a lot or maybe not as organized as they want it to be. Okay. This is just on a whiteboard. If you have a sheet of paper and a notebook and you turn it landscape, meaning wide style, you should be able to organize your thoughts relatively easy and see everything that you would need with enough space so it doesn't feel jumbled or really close together. Okay? I'm going to leave this up here and I'm going to move it a little bit closer for your notes. And if you could, once you are done, just type done and I will move on. And if you want to create an example that you connect with, feel free to do so. Feel free to make something that you can look at and be like, oh, I get this now, because these are topics that I understand and connect with. That is totally okay. So I'll give you like a minute or two to write that down before I erase it and move on to the next section. All right, I see half of you guys are done. So I'll just wait for a few more comments and we will move on. Tamaya, do you have this? Samaya, do you have it done? Alex, Tanisha, how are you feeling? All right, that's fine. Go ahead, Samaya, take your time. All right, Samaya. All right, so I'm going to erase this. I'm going to keep the arranging and supporting details because we're going to still be talking about the same thing. All right. So, I'm going to back this up a little bit again. So, let's say you guys want to use a different method. Say that method for you is a little bit too much, too many branches, not enough structure. That's okay, right? Everyone learns differently, everyone has their own preferred methods and style. So, now let's do subject 1, right? And then down here we're going to do subject 2. Okay? Under subject 1, let's say we're still going to use Gandalf and Dumbledore. All right. So, for subject 1, if we're going to do the block method, right, organizing everything in its own little section, what was erasing the board? Anyway, we're going to put everything in its own section. All right. So subject 1, Gandalf. Okay. Feature 1, or instead of feature, because this is our compare and contrast essay, we'll do point 1, point 2, and point 3. All right. So what is point 1? We're going to elaborate the same exact way that we did on the other sheet, or I'm sorry, on the other set of notes, however you have it set up. All right. So we have point 1, point 2, point 3. So what does that mean? That means if we're going to go with the same example that we used before, this would be powerful magic. I don't know if you've noticed, but one thing that I like to do with organization is color coding. If I color code things, I know what I'm talking about in each color code, and I do not have to worry about my information getting mixed up if I ended something too close to another one. Okay, so point 1, powerful magic, and all of this extra space here, you elaborate on the powerful magic. So, elab. All right, so you elaborate. Next, point 2, help hero against evil. Right? Elaborate. Point 3, their difference. So his events and his character journey. All right. We elaborate. Point 1, point 2, point 3. And then at the end, conclude, wrap up. Okay. Same thing. For the next one, subject is Dumbledore. Let's say with this one, we change up our color coding a bit, right? Because Dumbledore is different than Gandalf. Okay? So we do the same thing. Now his powerful magic his helping hero against evil, and then his events, right? You're just going through the same process, but you are organizing your thoughts. All right. So you elaborate for each one. And this is another more structured way to organize those same thoughts. Okay? It's literally the same exact thing, but this may be a new way for a more structured or concrete mind style individual to organize their thoughts. I personally like the web method because for me, it really highlights each specific point. Um, this is great. I don't mind this as well. I just, for me, visually, when things are separated and webbed out, they have their own little space, their own spot. This, again, color coding will really help you with that organization. If you don't really color code, you may get to a point where point one, point two, and point three are so closely together in that same table or on that same sheet of paper that it blends in. So I highly recommend color coding. So after all of these points on our subjects, what do we do at the end that we had labeled for the last style? Conclude. Okay. Always make sure you're concluding and wrapping up each body paragraph and then concluding and wrapping up your paper. I have one more to show you guys before the end. Do you need me to keep this on the board or can I move on? All right. Everybody else, can I go on? I'll wait till I get about half of the chat letting me know. All right. So while you guys are taking your notes, what I will do is I will start talking about chapter 7 for The Great Gatsby. I know not only the PDF of the chapter assignment, but I also put the definitions that you'll need as well as the part of speech that you need them for. That way you have the understanding of the way that it's used, etc. That is due by Tuesday because Wednesday is our class and I want us to be able to talk about it. But if you get it to me Wednesday before class, that's fine. Just make sure you have it in. Okay, we're nearing the end tail of the book, and again, as I had mentioned, in about 2 weeks you will have your compare and contrast paper. So if you take these notes down really well, you will have a blueprint on what you need to do to best succeed at your compare and contrast paper for The Great Gatsby. Okay? Your chapter 7 assignment, it's only chapter 7. Okay, so it has the definition section. Do your theme squares. I do notice a lot of people are leaving the theme squares blank. Okay, so for those theme squares, it's asking or highlighting a portion of that chapter where if you read this little blurb, you should be able to identify which theme or part of this story's theme it applies to. So, what are we talking about? A theme could be the love of money and how it can ruin love, right? Another theme can be love or the loss of love, right? For certain people, it can be the American dream, free enterprise, etc. You want to be able to identify these themes with whatever that blurb is and be able to support it with whatever information came from that chapter. That is how you are completing those theme squares. Okay. I see them blank often, and that should be a really simple section for you guys. If you look back, if you have them still, if you look back to your chapter 1 packets, there is a little breakdown on theme in your packet where we broke down each individual section, like literary terms. There's themes and examples of different themes that show up in stories. There was the character breakdowns. That way you could understand a little bit about each one. So if you look at your chapter 1 packet, those first 2 or 3 pages before you dove into the packet, that will have the information to help you complete those theme squares. And it'll even give you a few different themes that maybe fit into what you need for a specific square. So use your resources as best you can to allow yourself to best succeed. Are you guys ready for me to move on from this yet? I know we have 2 yes, but Samaya, are you ready? Anybody else? Samaya, you good? All right, almost. We have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to get through this last method, and we will move on from there. No, you're fine, Samaya. I'm not going to erase it just yet. Awesome, Joanna Marie. Awesome, awesome. All right. So, for the last organization style for your supporting details, I'm going to keep this subject 1 and subject 2. Okay. So subject 1 and subject 2 still here. Now, where we've been breaking it down as point 1, point 2, point 3, what you can do is you can build anchor points instead of. That's fine, Joanna Marie. Thank you for being here. There's going to be a video at the end of the stream, so if you miss anything, just watch the video and watch like the last 5 minutes. You should be all right. So subject 1 and subject 2, let's say we haven't done our research yet, but we want to really identify the biggest points of our specific subject. Okay? So let's change it around this time. Let's do Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? So subject 1. All right. So we have it broken down into subject 1 and subject 2. Malcolm and Martin Luther. All right. So instead of point 1, point 2, point 3, or instead of a web, you literally just break it down. So what are we going to do? Martin Luther King. What are some things we know about Martin Luther King right off the top of our head? Okay. Civil rights activist. Right? He's a civil rights activist. Does this apply to Malcolm X? Yes, no? All right. Check. So down here we can write civil rights. Check. Martin Luther King was someone who used the media to reinforce his right. He used the media to reinforce his message. Did Malcolm do the same thing? Yes, right? Use media. And you want to be able to, let's just say, compare apples to apples, right? You build up a list as long as you want. And you build up this list of all your commonalities, right? And this section will be commonalities. So I'll do that in black, right? These commons. All right. Let's say instead of just a point 1, point 2, point 3, you build up a list of 5, 6, 7 things they have in common, right? And then, so I'm just going to draw like another check mark and another check mark, right? Imagine they had all of these things in common. Now, instead of just focusing on the 1, 2 things that they have in common and then their one difference, what you're going to do is you're going to build almost like a list of commonalities that you think are applicable. Okay? Commonality, and then you're going to do the same thing for differences. So imagine the same list of 3. You guys have more space on your sheet. So do 3 checks, this, and then do differences. So you could say differences. Right? And what you're going to do, that's when you start your research. All right. Can I find enough supporting information about Martin Luther King as a civil rights activist? And can I also find enough information about Malcolm X as a civil rights activist. Yes, right? But in this same vein, these two men are also different, right? So, in this, you have civil rights activists. I'm going to move over to this side. Our civil rights activist, what we can do from here and here, it's combining the two methods. What is his? Compare. And what is his? Contrast. How did Martin Luther King use his civil rights activist talent the same way as Malcolm X did? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. All right. And the reason why you can do this and why this can be useful is you can be talking about the same key point, right? They both did these things. But these men who both did these things did them drastically different. So we can compare them this way, but their application or their approach was different, right? So, how did Malcolm X compare? They both were powerful media presences that questioned society and the current way of thinking and doing things for their time. How did they contrast? Well, Martin Luther King led peaceful protests and led a Christian faith or Lutheran faith biblical approach, where Malcolm X was very much about uprising, right? Didn't necessarily use peaceful ways to protest his ideas and the change in ideals. He also was a supporter of the Muslim religion, right? So these are differences, right? But they're still under the same civil rights activist point. So we could have one or 2 points, but be able to speak upon them enough in a compare and contrast way to get that full 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentence length paragraph, but doing the compare and contrast per paragraph instead of having a full paragraph and then another full paragraph. You're doing your comparisons head to head right in the same body paragraph. But with that information being said, that paragraph should be a bit longer than when you are doing them individually point by point. Because in this way, you are going to be comparing the two subjects at the same time, contrasting them at the same time. Civil rights activists, the same, but their approach different. Okay? You do this whichever way works for you. Okay? There is no right or wrong way to organize your thoughts. These are 3 methods that will allow you, in my opinion, the best means to success. But if you have your method, as long as you're able to highlight clearly what your subjects are, you're able to highlight clearly what your talking points will be, and you are able to highlight clearly the supporting evidence or the supporting facts to go with each point, you are fine. Okay? For your notes and for your work to be doing the next couple of days, you have The Great Gatsby Chapter 7. Okay? I would also like you to do your turn number 4. Okay? Complete your turn number 4. What I want you to do while you're completing your turn number 4, find 2 topics of interest for yourself. Okay? 2 topics that you think you can compare and contrast. 2 subjects. Okay? And just give yourself a sample breakdown. Apply it. Practice it. I want you to do that with 2 different ideas, meaning you're going to have a subject 1 and 2 for one idea, and I would like a subject 1 and 2 for another idea. So apply it twice. Okay? I want you guys to practice this. That way, once we get to the compare and contrast paper, you'll have an efficient way to organize your thoughts and apply what you need to succeed. Any questions before we wrap up or before we move on? I will leave this up so that you guys can get those notes down. This one's a little bit less wordy than the other. Yes. So your work that you're supposed to be doing, you're going to complete your Great Gatsby Chapter 7, all right, for the next week. You are also going to complete your turn number 4. When you're completing your turn number 4, what I want you to do, is it okay if I erase this so I can write it out for you guys? If that's easier? Or you know what? I have an idea. Look up. Elise Marie, I sent you Chapter 7 in the email with this link. Okay? And then for your turn 4, I just sent that in the comments. Look up 2 sets of topics for your choosing and create 2 compare and contrast breakdowns. You can use any of the methods that we used, but I want to see you applying them. Okay? So if you use the web method, the branching out, fine. You can apply that for 1 set. If you want to practice each one, you can do 1 set with the branching out style, another set in the point by point method or the block method. That's totally fine. Okay? But I want you to apply this twice so that you are getting those practice reps in. Okay? You are practicing looking up specific topics and breaking it down to the key points that matter. You are going home and researching something that interests you, and really figuring out how it differs from something else and clearly labeling and identifying the information you need to get your interest across to someone else. Okay? That's how you want to be thinking about any paper. How do I get what I'm thinking about and what I'm reading about on this topic? How do I get this across to my reader? How do I do this best? How do I make them understand what I'm thinking? Okay? These breakdowns will help you do that because it'll put your thoughts on paper in an organized way. That way you best understand how to move through your paragraph, how to create that flow and that understanding. Okay? You guys have a great rest of your day. Be safe. If you have any other questions, let me know. And I will try to create a Google Doc ASAP for the Great Gatsby Chapter 7 for those who need Google Doc. All of this is going to be, so your Chapter 7 is going to be due next week, because next week is the start of spring break, but it's also week 1 of the 4th marking period. And your notes, all of your notes and your practice, I want those as soon as we're done chapter 21. So we are almost done chapter 21, guys. Okay? So within the next week or two, you will be submitting the information for your chapter 21. Any other questions? You just all right dogged me? I see you, Elise Marie. I see you. All right. Guys, you have a great rest of your day. Be safe. Be smart. Work to the best of your ability. And have a good rest of your day.